The agony of Velikaya Novoselka. Russians unexpectedly launches a powerful offensive and surrounds Pokrovsk. Hello and welcome to the Reports from the Field channel. These are the military political updates for January 24th. Let's begin our overview with Kherson. Here, interesting video footage has emerged of FAB airstrikes in these three locations near the Antonovsky Bridge. Last year, it was reported that the island zones in this area were under the control of Russian units, with the dachas being partially or fully controlled by Russian forces. The island warfare here is ongoing, with the territories frequently changing hands between the Russian army and the Ukrainian Armed Forces, UAF. Looking back at previous videos, FPV drones were actively used in all settlements near the Dnipro River. Sabotage and reconnaissance groups constantly test the UAF's defenses on both sides. The footage we will review now can be interpreted in different ways. FAB strikes were recorded at these three locations. The explosions suggest either that the UAF was concentrating units to cross the river and attack Russian positions, or that the Russian Armed Forces, RAF, conducted diversionary reconnaissance operations and delivered strikes. If something significant begins in this direction soon, we will return to it. Zaporizhzhia direction. Let's move to the Zaporizhzhia sector. As you may recall, there are two key fortified points held by the UAF, Huliaipol and Orikhiv, that the Russian army must capture to advance further. Today, new video footage from Orikhiv shows the work of FPV drones. Interestingly, these videos reveal how UAF forces in the area are being deprived of communication. Relay stations and communication equipment are being destroyed, a tactic often employed before major offensives. The footage shows dozens of destroyed communication systems. Velikaya Novoselka. As in previous days, the main events are unfolding in Velikaya Novoselka. Yesterday, the UAF was offered the chance to surrender, but they declined. This raises questions. Why do many UAF fighters refuse to surrender? Share your thoughts in the comments. There are theories, including propaganda spread by the opposing side, falsely claiming that Russian units execute prisoners. Such tactics discourage surrenders and force UAF troops to fight to the death, increasing casualties and limiting Russia's ability to take cities with minimal losses. Currently, the settlement is divided into two parts, with intense assault operations ongoing. Video footage shows how FAB strikes are being conducted in specific areas, as well as in the vicinity of Novi Komar, possibly to counter UAF attempts to break through and unblock their encircled forces. From the footage, it's clear that the RAF has been conducting substantial artillery preparation for months before launching this assault. Kurakhove direction. Shifting to the Kurakhove direction, reports indicate that UAF equipment was destroyed near Dakhnoye. Russian units have intensified their activities, launching assaults near Andreevka. Video footage shows the destruction of a camouflaged UAF self-propelled artillery system, likely positioned to halt Russian armored groups. The drone footage confirms its destruction, with images of the burning vehicle. Pokrovsk direction. In Pokrovsk, UAF units near Udakhnoye are reportedly losing momentum, allowing the Russian army to advance more rapidly. Volchansk direction. Finally, let's address Volchansk. I sometimes don't cover specific directions due to a lack of updates. Positional fighting is ongoing across almost all sectors, and the absence of news means there's nothing noteworthy to report. Some commenters criticize me for ignoring certain areas, alleging that Russian forces are suffering losses there. Remember last year, the UAF's struggles at the aggregates plant. Recall how, last year, the Ukrainian armed forces repeatedly attempted to occupy the aggregates plant, only to be repelled by TOS strikes. A similar situation seems to be unfolding again at the aggregates plant. This is primarily due to the water barrier in the area. When UAF soldiers cross over to occupy the plant, as shown in month-old footage from Volchansk, they find almost nothing left of the settlement. Any UAF attempt to secure positions in these areas is met with devastating FAB strikes that leave nothing standing. The city itself, including the aggregates plant, has essentially ceased to exist. Additional footage from UAF-controlled areas shows the operation of artillery and FPV drones. In these clips, we see UAF personnel who are subsequently targeted by Russian artillery. Similar footage from Volchansk reveals UAF infantry under attack by FPV drones. Volchansk direction. In the Volchansk area, there is nothing extraordinary to report. However, on the Kursk front, intense fighting continues along the entire line of contact. Both sides employ FPV drones and conduct strikes. Russian units have reportedly breached enemy lines in Sverdlikovo. Meanwhile, the UAF released footage of HIMARS rocket systems targeting forest plantations where Russian troops are allegedly located. On the Russian side, advancements are being made across various directions, targeting UAF positions in the Kursk region. Artillery and FAB strikes are being deployed extensively. Recent footage includes significant damage caused by a FAB 3000 bomb. Thanks to air superiority and the use of FABs, the Russian army has inflicted considerable losses on the UAF. Despite ongoing assaults, the Russian losses remain lower than those of the UAF. Currently, there are no major breakthroughs, aside from the initiation of the assault on Sverdlikovo. Recent strikes in areas like Sudja, as well as FPV drone operations and FAB bombings in regions such as Malaya Lokhnya and Staraya Sorochina, appear to be diversionary tactics. The primary strikes seem concentrated near Sverdlikovo and Sudja, potentially aimed at closing the encirclement in these areas. Economic and political considerations. Both sides continue their strikes across borders. Russia employs drones like the Geran 2 and more advanced weapons such as Kalibr and Iskander missiles to target industrial and military facilities in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the UAF has attempted attacks on Russian oil depots, likely to weaken Russia economically. Today alone, approximately 110 UAF drones targeted Russian territories, most of which were intercepted, though some damage to oil infrastructure was reported. The UAF's reliance on drones highlights the limited scope of their arsenal compared to Russia's broader capabilities. In contrast, the Russian army continues to use its strategic missile systems effectively. Commentary on Donald Trump. I urge you to disregard sensational statements from Donald Trump, as many bloggers amplify his remarks for media attention. Trump is known for his bold rhetoric, often directed at domestic audiences. Behind the scenes, his goals are entirely different. He frequently speaks of wanting to strike a deal, including one with Vladimir Vladimirovich to resolve the conflict. Why does Trump push for an end to the war in Ukraine? Some of my colleagues have asked about his motivations. The answer lies in the lack of tangible returns on the US investment in Ukraine. Western media have repeatedly reported that 40% of allocated funds are misappropriated, with the remaining resources used ineffectively. The US has invested $100 billion without yielding significant results, as the Russian army continues its steady progress, capturing one city after another. To reverse this trend, the US would need to pour even more money into the conflict or take drastic measures, which are limited against a nuclear-armed state like Russia. Additionally, the Russia-China alliance poses a serious threat to the US, prompting efforts to negotiate a deal. Trump's public statements about sanctions and other measures often serve as posturing. Most effective sanctions have already been implemented, leaving little room for further economic pressure. Final remarks. In conclusion, don't let Trump's flashy statements and social media posts distract you. His political style is aimed at drawing attention, but his actions reflect a different agenda. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones.